Just a little housekeeping before we get started. Victoria is experiencing an extreme growth in this COVID-19 outbreak. I believe they had 30 new cases yesterday. So that's the reason we're up here. We were advised late Sunday night that meeting in the close proximity downstairs in the commissioner's courtroom was just not a wise idea. At the time, on Monday morning, the AG's office had scheduled this courtroom for use. Subsequently, they postponed, but it was too late for us. We'd already called it off, so that's the reason we're here on Thursday morning. We'll probably be meeting up here for the foreseeable future. We're working on getting some acceptable audio because the acoustics in this room are horrible. If you have a public communication or a public announcement, I would appreciate it if you get up out of your chair and walk up here close by and say what you have to say, because we wanted to pick up on the recordings so that everyone that's not able to attend can hear what went on. Right? Welcome. All right. We'll begin with our consent agenda. On page 12, we have a pullout for Commissioner Morales for $389.85. Motion to approve, please. Second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Page 16. Commissioner Bruns, $480.42. Motion to approve, please. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Page 17, Goliad Auto Parts, $282.77. Motion to approve, please. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Page 18, Goliad Auto Service, $70. Motion to approve, please. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Page 19, Commissioner Edwards, $39.99. Motion to approve, please. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any discussion on the remainder of the consent agenda? If it is, please proceed.
I got a question on page 6 on the.
Well, and excuse me just a second. This goes both ways. We're going to have to speak up so that they can hear because the acoustics in this room are really horrible. So make an extra effort.
On page 6, the enterprise rent-a-car. Basically, all we need is rent-a-car. It's coded to miscellaneous abandoned vehicles.
I do not know the answer to that. I haven't rented a car, nor do I know who did. Rusty, Lee, do you know? It was the sheriff's office. Sheriff, do you have an explanation of that?
I said,
there was a rent car used by the sheriff's office. Do you have an
You take word out of the big one.
Why do we need one? What was the,
We're doing some special, investigative work. Can't use a patrol car.
You were in need of a car that was not marked?
Correct. Incognito car.
I don't need to know.
Sir. Anyone else? Commissioner Morales?
No, sir.
Commissioner?
I got one more.
I'm sorry?
On page 7, we have a, site review and inspection by James Sauterholtz or something. And it was coded to, environmental fees, I think. I'm just curious what that is.
What was the number on that? What line was it? I'm sorry.
On page 7, right down about the middle of the page,
What was the amount of the check?
James Sauterholtz,
$905. Do you know anything about that? The check was made out to, James Sauterholtz for $905 on 610. He's the one that's taken over doing our sewer inspections for the county.
It says it was a OSSF site review. Is that a county site or off the county?
He's wanting to know where the inspection took place, I think. Is that correct? I don't know that we would have that information. He makes inspections of all the new.
He's asked what the abbreviation OSSF means. On site, what? It just says that on the.
I'm the on-site sanitation.
He handles complaints as well as the new installation inspections.
Abbreviation.
Satisfied with that, or do you want to go forward?
Good old abbreviation.
If there's nothing else, I need a motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Edwards, closing Church Street for the motorcycle group.
Yes, after the close of our last commissioner's court, I was presented with an agenda request to close the road. It was needing to be closed before we meet today, so I went ahead and since I've never had any trouble with them before, they've always been good out there, no problems. I went ahead and said they could do it, and I'm just asking to ratify what we did.
Motion to approve that, please.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is, I'm seeking to know what the status of the rural transit building project is. This has been a marathon. We initially approved Mrs. Wade to remodel that building. I think she has, Mary, how much money do you have invested thus far? Was it the entire 16,000 or was it half of that, or you really don't know, so. Okay. So I just need to know what pleases the court as far as where we intend to go from here with that old EMS building. The mole still exists. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to remove the mold without doing any remodeling that needs to take place, replacement of walls or removal of the sleeping room on the end or whatever, removal of the air conditioning ducts, everything that goes with it. I'm just trying to determine what the status is. I don't feel like it's fair to leave Ms. Wade out in the wandering around. So whoever's in charge of that, if you could just let us know what the status is. I think it's only fair to her. She's invested money. She's been very patient. The initial plan was that we were gonna move EMS out to the trailer they're in, and Ms. Wade was gonna put rural transit money into that building, remodel it to suit her purposes. And if y'all could enlighten us, it would be great.
I thought the court voted to give her that building. We all agreed on it. It was given her to do as she saw fit with for rural transit. That's what I thought this court approved. If there's a change, I'm not aware because we hadn't made a vote to change anything yet, so.
Well, we did. We did. We had there was a subsequent meeting, I'm not sure you were here, where Commissioner's Court wanted to just remove the mold, and that was all. And that's not a simple process. The air conditioning units that penetrate to the outside, there's going to be holes left in the walls there. We don't know what we would find when we got into the sleeping quarters. So, and it's not cost effective to do part of it, then come back and hit the other part.
And I would like to share something just for the record. As far as the EMS is concerned, the city has given Goliad County a year extension on leaving that trailer where it's set, just so we're all aware of that. You have an extra year right now to leave it there, so there's no push to rush into anything. So we need to really think before we do something that costs us a lot of money. But the city has agreed to give us another year of sitting right where it's at.
How long ago was that they gave it to you? Because you went in and talked to them
Last week.
last week again?
Yes.
Oh, well.
Got another year.
So to stay on track,
Last week.
what is your,
They were doing it at this court meeting, so we have a year, just for the record.
to stay on track, where do you want to go with the EMS building? It's still full of EMS equipment that was supposed to be moved out. And the mold is still present in the air conditioning ducts and in the walls and the sleeping quarters on the end. I think we have a limited amount in the wall that goes around where Jose's office used to be. I think the lion's share of all the mold is in the air conditioning ducts, the air conditioner itself, both air conditioners, and the walls on the far end opposite where Jose's office was. So I'll shut up, and if y'all,
Has the architect come up with a design and an expense, a cost
for what?
for Ms. Wade? They hired an architect to design it or to come up with a cost. Has that ever happened?
It was $16,000.
No, that was for the architect to do the work. What has he come up with, the architect?
Drew a set of plans. And the court shut it down, so we stopped. And I'm simply trying to find out where we're going from here. It just doesn't make sense to have a perfectly good building that needs to have the mold remediated and some paint put on the wall and another air conditioning system put in. It's sitting there, it's not being used.
Well, why don't y'all bring the plans and everything to us, to court, so we can look at them and approve of them or disapprove or whatever? Why?
Because the last time we met, you stopped that action and you said you just wanted to remediate the mold. You said you wanted to stop the action of remodeling to suit her needs. You said you simply wanted to remove the mold and not go any further until we figured out what we were going to do with the EMS. That's the reason why we stopped it.
Thought y'all were going ahead with the project.
That's impossible. Y'all voted to stop it.
I don't think we did.
No, we can pull the minutes, but you voted to stop it. You voted to stop it. So we stopped. And I would like to carry on. I would like to have Ms. Wade in her building so that we can reduce some of the congestion down in Mr. Edwards' shop over there. Or at least figure out what we want to do there. But y'all stop that action. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You said we just want to remediate the mold. And it's all on tape and it's in the minutes as well. I do not have them on me. So what's your pleasure? What do you want to do?
Well, way back then, I thought we was under the impression that we gave that building to Ms. Wade in transit to use her funding to take care of that and make it fit for what she needed to make it fit for.
You did. And then you stopped the action about, I don't even remember how long ago it's been, 2 months? I don't remember. I've slept since then. But we can sure give you the date. And y'all voted, you made a motion to just have the architect, I wish he was here this morning, the architect just make up a plan for getting rid of the mold. And it was ill-conceived because it was we're going to be paying double for that service. So if y'all are okay with finishing her building, letting her pay for it out of her funds, we're more than happy to do that. In the beginning, you put that task on me to work with an architect and Ms. Wade to get her part done. And you and Mr. Bruns took on the task of seeing what we were going to do about an EMS building. I think a couple of those deals fell through due to pricing or whatever. And when y'all were in limbo about what you were going to do, that's the period of time when you made the motion to stop it and just do mold remediation. I mean, it's clearly on the record. And if I'm wrong, then y'all can cane me, but I'm sure I'm not. So I want to know, that's all I want to know, what you want to do.
And I'll make a motion that we give the building to Ms. Wade like we did before and let her continue on to get that building ready for a full transfer. That's my motion.
I have a second on that.
I didn't hear the motion.
He wants to continue on with letting Ms. Wade finish her project and get moved out to the old EMS building. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Ms. Wade, are you good with that? Okay.
Sure.
I want to remind everybody that it's federal law, you do not enter that building unless you're certified to do so. That means you have to be trained to go in that building. You have to have the record of that training. And my past and justifies it, I've done this. So please don't enter the building and check what you do, and you have to have your training.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right. Discussion and action to return ad valorem road and bridge funds back to the general fund. I believe the auditor sent these to you earlier, but the numbers have changed slightly, so we wanted to give you accurate information. As you can see, the precincts have a lot of money in their accounts. This is our cash. And if, without the cash to back up the checks, that doesn't work. We were all under the impression, all of us, that money was being returned back to the general fund each year. I believe we're all in agreement on that. Is that correct, Mr. Bruns? Everyone?
That's
Okay.
what we were told.
Yes, sir. Well, when we arrived on the scene, we were able to figure out that all the money was in one account. One account. And there's a lot of issues that are involved with having all the money in one account. Restricted accounts, insurance reimbursements, FEMA claims, clerks' fees. There's 23 restricted funds that the county maintains. Money was all commingled in one pot, one bank account. Not a good situation. Anyway, after a lot of midnight oil, this is the answer. All these numbers tied directly back to the outside audit. And what I'm requesting is that the 4 commissioners return their funds, ad valorem funds, back to the general fund in order that we can make it through the end of the calendar year. As I'm sure everyone's aware, there's a lull after June or so, May, where people are either through paying their taxes or they've decided they can't pay their taxes. Anyway, taxes don't start coming in again until the end of December, the week after Christmas, the week before New Year's. That's when our coffers start to refill again. And there's a real issue with having cash on hand during that last 3 months of the year. It's just a problem with cash flow. That's the reason that you're supposed to have a minimum of 4 months cushion in your budget so that you can make it through that lean time. And if you have a large hiccup, if there's a problem with a building or something that needs immediate attention, it still puts you in a strain. So when they say a third of a year, that's the bare minimum that we're supposed to maintain. So I'm simply asking this court to return the money that they didn't think they had anyway back to the general fund so we can continue to operate. Commissioner Edwards, you have any discussion on that?
I'm a little confused. When I look at the revenue versus expenses for the end of May, it shows that we're at 76% of the budget is used in your revenues. And the way I read this, we've got $1.18 million in our to carry us until 3 months ago. So I don't see the emergency yet. We've still got over $1 million in there. And what we're doing here, the way I understand this, whether that money's in our account or another account, it's in our bank. I mean, it's not out there laying on the table to be spent. That's our savings that we have. How it got put in our accounts, we don't know, but it's still our savings. So you're asking us to go into our savings to to bail out your balanced budget. And that's the way I understand it.
Okay. You may be misunderstanding some. Everyone was under the impression that that cash was in the general fund. And it was just impossible. I'll let Rusty go into it, but it was just a mountain of work to disassemble and reassemble the books for 4 years. It was a major undertaking. As I told you, all the dollars were commingled into one single account. In July of 17, all the individual accounts were gathered up, put in one bucket, and transferred to another bank. The journal entries, for the most part, stopped at that point, and there was a tremendous amount of work that had to take place. Rusty, if you want to add to this, please do. Speak up. Come up here and talk if you would.
In order to determine the correct bank account balance, we had to go in and reconcile that one bank account. In doing so, you had to look at each transaction, see what fund it really belonged in, and then do that on a monthly basis. And that was very, very, very time consuming.
Why, we've had the same outside auditor since 2012, I think, and maybe before that, I'm not sure, but this is when I think that slush fund from the precincts was brought back into the general fund, when Judge Bowman was here. He asked
That is
how you return that money to.
That is the last transfer of funds that I can find. But keep in mind, outside auditors did not do an audit for 17 or 18.
Right, but this, he did one for 15 and 16.
Right.
And why would he have not told us this back then? Because I asked the question, you know, why? Because at the end of the year, we get in a bind, but they allowed us to turn in invoices up to October 15th, I think. That helped us out on paying our contractor, because we're doing all this right at the end of the year, because that's when you do it, the weather and all that. But I even asked, can we go back to this slush fund? And they said, no, it's just best that we just allow you to turn in your invoices up to October 15th. So
You're talking about the cutoff. For audit purposes, that report is prepared on an accrual basis of the county. So let's say we get an invoice in on October the 23rd, but it's for work done prior to or on September 30th. It's going to be booked in that.
Right, and y'all did. And I'm not saying nobody didn't do that. What I'm saying is, why didn't this outside auditor tell us any of this? And we've had 5 inside auditors since that period, back around 2012. Why was this never brought up before?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for what happened in 16. That's the last, but you have to keep in mind, David, 16 audit was done probably 2 years after the fact. If not 3.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
It should be done no later than the following year.
I would think, yeah, that's what we always hope for, but.
And then, of course, 17 and 18 won't be done. So that's why we did the balance sheet audit as of 9/30/19.
But why didn't they catch this? If this was going on, okay, so Judge Bowman called in these slush funds. So the next year they started, you're saying they started, the precinct started keeping their balance at the end of the year.
I do not see transfers in the accounting system that were booked transferring any money from Road and Bridge to general fund.
So what Judge Bowman did is the last time that there were any transfers made. And we are simply asking that those transfers be made today so that we can go on about our business. This is not a complicated matter. On the 216 outside audit, there were balances in the precinct funds, I believe. I had never seen that until last week, that 216 audit. So y'all received that when you received the 216 audit.
And there again, we were never told this. I would like to talk to the outside auditor some more. We tried to set up a meeting with him, but because of all this virus stuff, he's not real excited about.
Well, and two, don't forget, 3 commissioners going to see an outside auditor at one time, that's a quorum.
Well, I know, but I thought that the governor, because of the state of emergency, had thrown.
We can certainly, let me tell you this, if y'all want to bring him back over here,
He said he was coming at some point.
I mean, if y'all set a date and time, and I'll get him back over here.
He said he was coming for another meeting.
No, we're gonna do this follow-up engagement letter to look at these other transactions that are in excess of 25,000 that need to be reviewed.
But there again, I'd have to check in on that, but I remember when the governor, announced a state of emergency that the Open Meetings Act went out.
No,
I'm not aware of that.
no.
I mean, that's what.
If it did, I'm not aware of it.
Well,
Mr. Balmonte, are you aware of that?
we
Open Meetings Act is not put on my attention.
Right.
But it is by way of Zoom and other media how to continue the Open Meetings Act without being monitored.
well, that was my mistake. I heard that.
It wasn't to put the burden on the government.
So we can spend the morning discussing what happened in the past. I wasn't here. My preference would be to give back the money that you thought you'd already given back so that we can operate our county. And when you make the statement that to bail out my budget, I was under the impression the money was in the general fund, just like you. It needed to be in the general fund. It still needs to be in the general fund. And all we're trying to do is put it in the general fund so we can continue on.
My question again is this over and above what we have in our, what we thought we had in our savings, or is this our savings? That's been in our,
Well, on this very first line that you see on here, that cash balance at 9/30/19,
what's this at?
She,
This a page that y'all just gave us? Okay.
this comes directly off of the outside audit report. These are the numbers that Harrison Waldrop and Herrick said that we had, that includes all investments. The second line, those are the lateral road monies that y'all have received between 16 and 19. Now, the only precinct that spent any of their money was precinct 4 off of lateral road. So all those monies, we back that out. Because that money can't be transferred to general fund.
License plate fees, registrations, some TxDOT money that comes from the state, reimbursements and so forth. That money is dedicated to road and bridge and it can't move. All we're talking about here is ad valorem taxes, what we pay on our land and house. That's all we're talking about. It's not going to affect your special road and bridge. That's locked in. Whatever you have in your special road and bridge account is Precinct 1 has 26,000. 2 has 249,000. 3 has 319,000, and 4 has 219,000. We're not talking about that money. We're talking about ad valorem tax dollars that you thought that you'd already given back, and I'm just asking you to give it back. We will not have the money to cover our checks in December, according to the auditor and the treasurer. It just won't be. We need the cash in the bank to cover the checks, and all the cash is in y'all's account. If I knew a better way to explain it, or if anyone else wants to make an attempt at it, take off. But it's nothing more than that. The cash has to be in the general fund to back the checks up that are written.
Let me ask,
And where this came from is, starting in 16, if you go back and look at the monies that were spent and the revenues that we received, every budget that was done was really an unbalanced budget. The only thing that was done to make it appear to that time was to transfer in money from savings or reserves. Everything was in one bank account. No one knew what the bank balances were for the general fund, road and bridge, any other restricted funds. No transfers were done, I can tell you. So that shortfall continued to come out of the general fund.
and all the time that we were thinking, when we turned money back in at the end of the year,
You didn't turn any
go
money
back
in.
to
You didn't have to.
Let me ask you this, you were the auditor last year, where did the money go that we turned in last year?
Stayed in your fund. If the judge and I had known what the bank balances were when we did the audit for the budget for 19 and 20, it would have been done differently.
Well, I gotta ask too, your budget, we had that GLO grant, that $723,000 that's in your budget, that we're never gonna get. It's the way that budget, that grant works is, after we do the work, we send them the bill, they send us the money to pay the bill, and we have 5 days after we get the money to send it out. So I don't know if we could ever call that revenue, because it's being spent it's being paid out as we spend it on these jobs. But
Well, regarding that, it doesn't look like that, we're gonna do any of that work in this year's budget. But it's a wash because
But it's still in our revenue showing we've got.
it shows the revenue, but
$723,000.
there's an expense for that same amount that won't be touched either.
It's more along the lines of a reimbursement, sir.
Get it, but I just don't think it should have been in there in the first place.
And if you.
We needed a line, yes, we need a budget line to receive that money and disperse it, but not as revenue.
You have to have a balanced budget, you have to have a revenue and an offsetting expense for the same amount. Otherwise, it's gonna be unbalanced. And what we're gonna do going forward, because we've gotten so many grants, we're gonna set up individual funds for every grant.
Yes. Yes.
It's gonna stand on its own.
We're gonna call it revenue?
We're gonna have a line item for revenue. And we're gonna have the expense line items.
You said you're going to? You're still talking about the grant, right?
On this next year's budget, we're gonna split out all the grants. Because it seems like we're gonna be getting quite a few grants coming in.
Because, to be honest with you, I don't think we've ever been told what all this $700,000 grant was all going to go to. It had some for the auditorium and some for.
If you go back and look at the budget for this year, there was money allocated for the auditorium. Money, allocated to Kenneth Precinct for redoing some roads.
Generators, 2 generators.
Generators, what is it, the one out here at Berkeley and
Over here.
But what I'm saying is we didn't see it on the expense side. We saw it on the revenue side, but we didn't see all these. Because I remember when we got our search money from TxDOT, it was on the revenue side, and then it was broke down under each, precinct of what they were gonna get on the expense side, in each one of them.
Well, the expense side is basically what you spend out of that money.
Yeah, but it was labeled search money, so.
Okay, so to try to stay off some of the rabbit trails,
I'd like to still meet again with the outside auditor to see why this wasn't picked up before. I don't understand that, why.
Well, if you'd have done an audit in 17 and 18, you would have known.
and we weren't there. 16, though, is denoted in those balances are denoted in the 2016 audit that y'all received when he presented it.
But he did a more precise whatever audit back in 15 and 16. That's the two I got, of course, because that's when I got here.
Well, we weren't here, and I don't know how,
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how it was presented.
There,
What really, where things got off track is when y'all didn't do the 17 and 18 audit.
okay, because the last one we got, he called it a checks and balance audit.
It's a balance sheet audit.
Right. This one is, this is 16, and it's an annual financial report. So.
That was a full audit.
Full scope audit.
So why didn't he tell us this back then?
That's a question for, I don't think Steve was involved in that one.
Dennis Seahall. Yeah, but
Ask him that question.
I mean,
You're right. But not everyone's going to say exactly the same thing. Keep in mind, in that year, those monies were transferred.
no, y'all are saying that it hadn't been transferred since Bowman pulled in that slush fund.
That's as of 9/30/16.
No, that was about 2012.
Audit report right there.
This one is 16 and 15, what I got.
9/30, but it's as of 9/30/16. Okay. I think that was Bowman's last.
No, Bowman's last year was December 31st of 14. And this happened before I was here there. That's when Ted built that yard out there. He built it with his slush fund. He bought the property and built it. But there again, so if you're saying that it went back to the old slush fund ways, why didn't these people ever tell us that, hey, you got this much money in your account?
First of all, we shouldn't call it a slush fund. That's a real bad term.
Well,
These are in the individual precinct accounts.
yes,
You have purview of it. Okay. They're not slush funds in that I can't decide we need a new bench out front and come get the money out of your account.
Mhm.
It's in your precinct operating fund. So,
Judge, I've got another analysis that came from y'all, as of June 8th of 2020. And it shows in our general fund, as of 5/31, to have $3,280,000 in it. And I don't see where this is all based on what we had in there in October 1, 2019, the last sheet you gave.
No, well, this one, like I said, these numbers on here came from the outside audit report. As of 9/30/19.
those are when you look at the bottom line on this sheet here, that's the cash balances that Steve came up with. That's where he said we were on October 1st of 19.
Then I get this one on June 8th, 2020, and it shows that as of 5/31/2020, general fund has $3,280,000 in it.
Well, they're a year apart or 6 months apart.
Well, another thing, let me just point out to you. Do you remember when Steve Van Manen presented the 19 audit and he pointed out that we have multiple funds that have deficits.
Say that again?
And Steve presented the 19 balance sheet audit. He pointed out to y'all that there were multiple funds that had deficit balances. And I'm talking about cash balances.
I think for an example is,
It's going to be the general fund. It's going to fund that deficit.
one example is Miss Annie sitting over there. She's supposed to be paid from, her salary is fee-based. It comes out of a fee, severely overdrawn. We had to make that fund whole. And it was way overdrawn because of the way that it was being done in the past. So it's things like that. We had a bunch of red accounts that there was no way of knowing until everything was disassembled and reassembled. As he said, we had one account, and they had to go through every transaction and figure out what that went to. If it went to Mr. Bomani's fund, they had to take it out of one of his funds. Every transaction that occurred in Goliad County during that period of time, and then put it in the right place.
Balance sheet audit, you can see every fund in their balance. And those accounts that I'm referencing that have the large negative balances are noted on there.
Okay,
They're all on that report.
Okay, on this report you just gave us, so on precinct 4, my balance supposedly in this fund was $784,000. In 18, it jumped up to 1.192 million. So that means I had $408,000 left over in my budget for that year.
I don't know.
This is 17, 8. See, this is what you're saying I had in that. It's not slush fund, but you know, whatever. Okay. Right, and it jumped up 400. My whole budget wasn't in 400,000. I don't think. But it had to.
It was. You may not be counting your
$50,000 in our road and bridge. We dropped it over $100,000.
You may not be counting your special road and bridge money.
No, we didn't have special road and bridge back then. 17, 18.
Oh, 17, I'm sorry.
I can show you.
I mean, I might have returned $18,000 or had $18,000 left over.
But none of this, like I said, none of this was ever returned. This has stayed within that bank account.
Well, how could I have had $408,000 left over? I don't get that. That's why the math doesn't, I don't get the math.
This is as of 9/30/19, and this is the outside audit. And you had $1,063,554.
So we need to move on.
But I mean, if we had done the outside audits in 17 and 18, then it would show that.
I just would like to get Steve back in.
Well, we have him here back at the next meeting.
Yeah, he said he was coming back for another meeting.
We can get him here any time, but these are his numbers, and he's told us several things. Not to jump ahead, but I think the way to build buildings and do capital expenditures is to have bond elections, and it doesn't count against your rollback rate and other things. And the citizens are aware who's paying for what, and they're approving it. It's an issue for us is that if you look how much money we have in the bank, it's almost none, and we're not bondable, according to Steve. If we went to have a bond election to build a $500,000 place for the EMS and the fire or whatever, we would be paying a very high rate. The number he gave is 7 to 9%, when the real number ought to be 2%, because we don't have any money in the bank. And the rest of the problem is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we don't have a credit rating. Why? Because we've never borrowed any money. So we've never established a credit rating in Goliad County. So there's a lot of issues. Not owing money is a good thing, except if you decide you need to borrow some money and then you don't have a credit rating to go get the money, if that makes any sense. So we desperately need this money in the bank so that we can cover checks.
And there again, I said at the last meeting, this money is in the bank. If I quit today, I'm not taking this money home with me.
No one has insinuated that, sir.
County taxpayers' money, it is in the bank.
And you have 100% control of it, and we can't write a check for something that's not related to Precinct 4 on that money. That's why we need the money back. This is pretty simple stuff.
But if we needed the money, we
If who needed the money?
bring it to Commissioner's Court to approve to use that money. So I really would like to get.
Okay, let me explain a few things.
Judge, can I say something?
Just a second. Precinct camps, precinct accounts are not the bank for the county. They're not the loan agency for the county. This is tax money that should have been returned every year. It belongs to the taxpayers. It should be used for operational expenses for the county. And to make the suggestion that you'll give us what we need as we need it, that is just not proper. This is county tax money. And everyone seated here believed that they didn't own that county tax money. And now that you find out you did, you don't want to give it back.
Oh, we never said that.
Let me say something.
Never said we didn't want it.
I'm gonna say something. We all thought this money was back in the general fund, and the right thing to do is to vote and put it back in the general fund. Every penny is on here. Now, I'm willing to do that, but it's gonna take all of us to vote. So that's what's the bottom line, and let's cut through the chase, and I make a motion, we vote to put all this money back in the general fund. Now, if you don't want to second it, it's on you, but that's where the motion's at right now.
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is this is this a vote as a court to turn it, or is this money from each of us? Do we decide, or do we decide as a court to give it back, since it's in each of our budgets? Is it a court decision to give it back as a group, or is it a decision for each commissioner?
Well, it depends on the motion. The current motion on the floor is to give all the money back out of all the precincts. If a motion was made to give the money back out of precinct 1, then that would be the thing on the floor. Right now, the motion on the floor is to give it out of all 4 precincts back in. Did that answer your question?
Yes. I still have more questions.
Okay.
We're gonna, how much are we giving back? If we're told enough.
I believe it's enumerated on this sheet.
Number I have. I've got more numbers for the same thing than you can shake a stick at. And I'm looking at the most current one I have is this June 8th, and it's saying that I have $125,000 and $866,000, or $125,866. How much is in the general fund now, without us putting anything in there?
Before or after? Well, let me just say it.
Speak up if you can.
Right at 865,000.
855.
865,000.
And our monthly expenditures roughly are
400,000.
400,000.
But it says here, there's 3.2 million as of May 31st in the general fund.
That adds in the air park money, and that does not take out these funds that have these deficits. Because when we set up these accounts, you can't open a bank account that has a $800,000 deficit. And that money is gonna have to come out of the general fund.
Okay. Kenneth asked what he's got to give back. According to what I see here, Kenneth, you're gonna return $45,468. Alonzo's gonna return $601,633. Precinct 3 is gonna give back $1,288,657. And precinct 4 is gonna give back $1,035,942. That's the bottom line. Total of,
Where'd you find that? I don't need to
right
do
there, $2,971,700 will be returned to the general fund. And that's the motion. Is that simple?
that.
Any rocket science, let's just do the job that we were put here to do for the people.
So you might want to, you were a little general when you made that motion, if I could help you a little bit. You're not returning all the money.
No, we're keeping, the bottom line is what we're keeping.
And it's,
But that's the amount we have.
and there's no money involved that's not ad valorem taxes.
That's right, that's the money that,
And this does not include special.
that's the money we're gonna return.
And this does not include special.
Exactly.
You're still gonna have a pretty hefty balance in your special.
Exactly.
About
That line.
$5,000.
Line item that I'm talking about right there, we need to return to the general.
So if you want to refashion your motion,
I make a motion that we return all the money on this line item that says cash to be transferred to general fund, $2,971,700. All of it needs to be returned to the general fund.
You just take all the four precincts.
All for the precincts. Total amount is $2 million.
Can I make an explanation too?
sure can.
Discussion here. I'd like to see us, get some more clarification on these numbers.
Did the outside meet with the outside auditor that just did the audit and figure out where this money is gonna go? I'm not against giving the money back. Don't get me wrong with that.
It goes to general fund.
I understand that, but I need some more clarification on where this stuff is gonna go.
To the general fund.
General fund.
There's only one general fund.
You said there's some accounts that are in deficit. Is that correct? You said there's some accounts that are in deficit.
When we go to set up these individual accounts, those monies are gonna have to be put back into there.
I'll pick on Annie again. When we go to establish, I'm sorry, Annie, when we establish the bank account for the fund that Annie is paid out of, it's in the red now. You can't open up an account where it's in the negative. You have to.
That's what I'm talking about, Judge, clarification. I didn't know that her account was in the deficit.
Nobody did.
Nobody did.
Look at the analysis, they're not.
There wasn't a bank reconciliation done for over 2 years.
Our checkbook was not balanced for over 2 years.
When I took office, I had 18 bank statements, monthly bank statements that had not been reconciled. And the reason they couldn't be is they didn't match the ledgers.
So,
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
all right, well, we need to move on because we're circling here. So you've made a motion. Can I get a second? Motion dies of lack of a second. Motion dies of lack of a second. We will, yes, sir?
You told me we've got $865,000 in the general fund now, correct, trustee? So we're not to the point we can't pay our bills.
No, sir. Not this month.
The other thing, if this revenue versus expenses that we get every month, if it's accurate,
All the departments are funded. There's no negatives in here. They're all at 70% of their funds are spent. I'm not seeing any negatives.
Okay.
I can tell you right now, and I don't pick on any one department. EMS, we go over their budget. Like pretty significant amount.
Significant amount.
Before we go again, since they don't want to make a second, I make a motion that let precinct 3 give its money back. I'm willing to just give mine back. Do what you want to do. My God, it's nonsense. It's nonsense going on up here. I make a motion to give precinct 3's money back.
We just want to talk to the outside
Let's talk to
auditor.
him. But
And
I'm
you,
willing to give mine.
can I get a second on that to allow him to give us some cushion,
You want to give him a second?
please? Sir?
Whatever you
All
want.
right, well, I made the motion, you have to second.
I just,
Just like a little more, like Alonzo, a little more explanation.
Okay. Well, they do add up, sir.
Okay, well, there's a second needs to be made for me to give my money back.
Can I get a second to allow him, we need some cushion, guys, I'm telling you.
They're right. And
There's no hiccup money in our bank account right now, no hiccup
let
money.
me turn my money back.
$865,000.
We're spending,
Every 2 weeks, it's 185,000 to 200,000. You got, right there, with that money that you have, you're not gonna make payroll. What we have in the bank right now has to last us to December.
Well, I understand that.
So we're gonna be broke.
Today, we can still make payroll.
today, we can make payroll. Yeah, we can,
$865,000. We got money to make a month or two. You're pushing us into something that,
Nobody pushing you into anything. I just made a motion that
I'm not-
precinct 3 put its money back.
Kenneth, I am not,
Second it or not?
I'm not pushing, well, I moved on, then he made another motion, okay?
There's a second.
Let me take control again, just a second. He made a motion that he should be allowed to give his money back. He wants to give it back. Can I get a second to allow him to do that? It's a simple question. Will somebody give him a second and allow him to give his money back so we can have a cushion?
I think we get the outside auditor here next meeting.
You've already said that, sir. So does that mean that we're not going to get a second to allow the man to give his money back so we can have a cushion? Is that what I'm hearing? If that's what I'm hearing, we can move on. It dies for lack of a second. Is that correct? Okay.
Judge, if I may, on the same sentence, like you said, get a clarification, we need to meet with, have a special meeting and or a regular meeting, I don't care. Meet with this outside auditor so we can get this done.
Okay, one thing I want to point out to everybody, because in January, when the first grand jury met, 3 of y'all, or 2 of y'all, stopped paying your employees through lunch. Now that the grand jury was
Let him finish.
now that the grand jury is over, everyone, or 3 of y'all are going back to paying during lunch. I'm here to tell you that when budget was done, there was no money budgeted for paying employees at time and a half for hours they did not work.
This is not pay, we don't pay them, that's just comp time, and
It's the same story.
they earned it, we didn't pay them, they earned it.
Judge, that has nothing, if I make a point of record, that has
See, another
I'm
argument,
trying to, look, let's
how can you sit in here and talk about
stop this.
jury when that's supposed to be all comp?
He's gonna, I think he's fixing to tell you something that matters here.
Did you just break a law, Rusty?
I'm making a statement that that our budget is gonna be in the.
No, you just mentioned what might have happened at
I can read the newspaper.
Okay, look, we're out of control here. Let's move on to the next one. We're gonna agree that we're gonna get the outside auditor to, Mr. Bruns, that's enough, please.
well, we're not gonna talk about that.
He just, listen to me. Mr. Morales just asked me to stop the discussion because it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about. Okay. So, we're gonna table it, so it will come up on the next meeting.
Thank you.
There's no motion to take.
Need a motion to,
Right now,
I understand.
I'll
So,
make a motion, we take it to the next meeting and we'll get the outside
what
audit.
I'm looking for. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed? All right, we'll have the outside auditor here to go over his numbers that you're looking at the next regularly scheduled meeting. Ms. Wade, the Federal CARES Act. You'd come up here, please. I'm sorry.
This is money for this year for the Federal CARES Act funds that we received from transit, $150,000.
We're looking for an approval to receive those funds.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Morales,
Yes, sir.
there was a misprint. There's an addendum somewhere in the stack. And it was anyway, $16,000 to be transferred from contingent and uncommitted fund into the Emergency Medical Services Land Acquisition and Renovation Fund no later than 5 p.m. on June 24th.
The date is irrelevant because the meeting was supposed to happen on Monday anyway.
I got that. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, we had talked about this, at the last meeting, and we had left it at, we wanted to research it with the clerk's office to see when it was talked about in previous meetings. No one was sure when this occurred. And this occurred, I got the copy of the minutes here, it occurred on the March 30th meeting, where this court voted on to create the new budget line item to put these funds into. That was the first motion. The second motion was to put the $16,000 into that fund line item. And then also, back in January of 27th of 2020, the Commissioners Court had a Commissioners Court order to create this new budget amendment to the 1920 budget.
Yes, sir.
So, again, I am ordering, by request of this order here, ordering the auditor's office to put the $16,000 into that fund so we can proceed on with this project. I have copies of the order here and the copies of the minutes. You have copies of the minutes in your minutes that were handed out this meeting.
This is not an emergency situation. I mean, I've heard from y'all multiple times that it is or was, but it's clear there's no emergency situation. They moved into that building last July or August. When we did the budget, no one asked for any line item to be set up for capital outlay, land acquisition, building renovation, nothing. I cannot transfer that money and set up a line item that's not in the existing budget.
We just had the order that was passed January 27th, 2020 by this court to create that amendment, budget amendment to the budget.
It's not an emergency.
We ain't talking emergency here. Okay. There's an order right here.
Sounds like we need to move on to the district level. We can talk this thing to death, but it's not going to change anybody's opinions.
let me give you a legal opinion. When the court declares an emergency to amend the budget, that can be challenged by any taxpayer in the county. It cannot be challenged by the auditor. Now, the auditor can file a suit in district court like any other taxpayer, and a judge or a jury decides. It's a question of fact. It's not a question that the auditor gets to determine. It's a question that a judge or a jury gets to determine whether or not that was an emergency. That's the law. He can't do it by himself. Now, the problem is he's refusing to do that. So now he's going to be ordered to do it and can be held in contempt of court if he fails to do it. That's the process. If somebody wants to challenge the court's decision to call an emergency, that's a question of fact that has to be determined by somebody other than the auditor. I can't determine it, the county judge can't determine it, the clerk cannot determine it, and the auditor cannot determine it. That is a public decision made by members of the community that pay those taxes. It's not made by just an outside county employee. Now, he is a resident, and if he wants to, he can file a lawsuit in district court, and let's figure this out. But he has no standing to make that decision.
Let me read this one. This paragraph right here. Before you do that, though, let me ask you. Finding?
The local government statute.
Well, what are the statute numbers?
I don't have it on my head.
I'd like you to send them to me.
I've already had it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You have the statute I talked to you about, giving you the case law, giving you everything. You're not 7 years old. The law is 80 years old, which has been amended and changed several times.
Okay, I'm going to read this because we're losing time here. Commissioners Court is sole agency having discretionary power to determine existence of such facts as would constitute an emergency, justifying a budget amendment. But if said court actually acts fraudulently or arbitrarily declares existence of an emergency when none exists, the county auditor should refuse to audit or approve claim filed under attempted amendment and refuse to countersign warrants on county treasurer against funds unlawfully set aside for that purpose.
I'd like that entered into the record.
Where did the money come from?
I'd like to address that. What that says is the auditor refused to pay. That's what it says. The auditor believes that a bill is sent to him that is fraudulent. That's a warrant. Am I correct? That you can refuse to pay. Right? Okay. We're not doing that today. What the court's doing is transferring money into the line. No one's asking you to pay a darn thing. Right? But my point is, what you're pointing out is another bunny trick. It has nothing to do with what's going on right now today. If you want to object to it, these guys hire an architect or a contractor to get some bids and they want to submit a bill. I don't know what's going on today.
Look, I think we're at the stage where we're going to have to go to a higher pay grade than this court. It looks like somebody's going to have to file suit, or we're going to have to go to the district judge. Something's got to occur because it's clear that he's not coming off of it and that these gentlemen are not coming off of it. So let's just move on to the next step. But motion's been made several times. I mean, this.
I haven't heard a second or if there's a vote on it or
We ordered him to do it. The court ordered him to do it 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
They ordered him to create a line item, and I don't have it in front of me, but they ordered him to create a line item and transfer the funds. Okay, then I stand corrected.
Motion on the floor ordering him to transfer the money out of the contingent uncommitted
So let's finish that motion. You want to restate your motion, sir, and then we'll get a second and you can vote on it.
Motion is by this request and this action of this court ordering the county auditor to transfer $16,000 from the contingent and uncommitted fund into the emergency medical services land acquisition and renovation fund.
I'll get a second on that.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner Edwards, you want to talk about an invoice? You want to talk about an invoice?
On the hiring of this attorney that you hired for legal advice back in, I imagine it was January. First thing I have is going back to the contingent and uncommitted, it's supposed to be emergency stuff according to Rusty. On February the 4th, that bill to those attorneys that you hired came out of the contingent and uncommitted fund.
I didn't hire him out of any fund, sir. I hired him because I have received information that I did not find to be true and correct based on my law enforcement experience as a police officer. So I sought outside counsel, and that's what occurred. I gave the bill to my assistant who sent it upstairs. So as far as the contingent and uncommitted, I can't address that.
That's where it's at. That's
Okay?
bill.
All right?
Oh, and we're saying that that's an emergency fund. Was that an emergency?
I certainly did not know about it. It was unforeseen that I was going to get this stuff sent to me. It directly affected the way that I do my job and the performance of my duties. I've checked with the outside auditor. I've checked with the attorney. I've checked with TAC. I've checked with this auditor here, and every one of them says that it's a legitimate expense. And furthermore, Mr. Baiamani has a copy of this. This is from Catherine Howard at TAC. I'm still researching the reimbursement order question for you, forwarded earlier, but this case speaks to the issue. If Commissioner's Court approved the legal fees bill, then the county is bound by that action. I'll continue looking for something else more modern. So that's my response. You ratified it. It's over.
Why didn't you consult the Attorney General on that question? Why did you go hire private?
Because because I'm free to use who I want to use. And I use the best governmental attorney in the Coastal Bend area. And I provided Mr. Baiamani with that response. If anyone has anything further, I'll be happy to listen to it, but according to the Wizards of Smart, it's over. You ratified it. Okay?
I understand that.
Okay.
Next question is, you're saying this was an unincurred expense, that we took it out of uncommitted. This EMS.
I didn't say that. Here's what I said. I placed the order with the attorney. He sent me his opinion. A bill came in. My assistant sent it upstairs. I did not say anything else. I didn't say anything else.
That's encoded?
Sir?
Encoded?
I did not code it. No, sir.
And how did it get paid? I got to code all of my bills.
Because I sent it up to the auditor's office because I didn't know where to code it. And if you want to talk to the auditor's office, you're free to do that. But the bottom line is, you voted to approve this. You ratified it.
What did it say under the check?
The same thing. It says what the contingent It's consent agenda.
Enough information.
Then you shouldn't have approved it, and you should have asked for more, but you're bound by your vote, sir. Right, okay. Anything else?
That's why we didn't pass the,
Sir?
because we don't really trust y'all anymore.
That's okay. Honestly, it's a two-way street. Okay. It was unforeseen, had no way. The okay, here's the yes or no answer. The definition of an emergency is an occasion that rises that you had no indication that it was going to show up. It comes as a surprise. So yeah, that's what an emergency is. When your house catches on fire, you didn't know the house was going to catch on fire. That's the definition of emergency. Okay. Anything else? And now we have a discussion from Mr. Edwards regarding the GLO contract 20065 Community Development Block Grant. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Excuse me. I just want to clarify that before I get into this with in regards to the projects that I'm going to have occur in my precinct, that in the performance statement of the grant, it claims that heavy rainfall caused flooding of homes and streets. High winds cause imminent fire damages to public facilities, inadequate drainage systems throughout the county prohibited stormwater draining effective. This inundated streets and threatened public health, safety, and welfare. Subrecipient will conduct street water public facility infrastructure improvements to facilitate proper stormwater conveyance. I don't recall that ever standing in water.
Nor do I. The only place I'm aware of that water got overrode is over on Stiley Road.
That's all I want to make sure that we're not misrepresenting this money that we're getting. I'm all for repairing the roads. God, we need them. But I don't want to be misrepresented into saying that we had flooded streets and homes out there that we didn't.
We didn't. I have a hard time convincing the flood control people and others that we're blessed in Goliad County. We don't flood. We have a lot of other problems, but we don't flood.
The reason Staley Road washed out was because all this water was down the hill.
I understand that. We hired a grant administrator to communicate directly with GLO. They hired an engineer who worked directly with you to lay out the projects. There's nothing in the dark here. It was a tricky grant to approve or to get approved. We had to have most of it in LMI, low to moderate income. La Bahia qualifies. City of Goliad doesn't. I mean, it has to be a low income deal. So that's the reason that they're going to do some paving in your area. The money that was, if you do a percentage of the total grant in the LMI, then they leave you some additional to do other projects. And those projects, that project was the auditorium. We were able to get the auditorium in there because we called it a freestanding shelter. So that's all I can tell you on it. Ms. Langford, we can get her down here and go through it again. I just don't have anything to hide. I'm doing my best. I'm trying to get us some money that we don't have. I'm trying to renovate the auditorium that looks like bad.
Well, my only concern is that everybody knows that I know that this flooding homes and streets and everything. We had some homes that had water. But I never saw any water. You know, I got out when the winds were down to 45. By the time I got to town, it took me an hour and a half to go this out. I didn't find any water. So I just wanted on the record that what they're saying here didn't happen.
We have told everyone that would listen that we don't flood in Goliad County. We've been upfront and honest about everything. I've never misrepresented anything to the government on these grant applications or anything else. The applications are public record, and you can read those applications. You can read what we purported to be the truth. You can read what Ms. Langford, our grant administrator, purports to be the truth. And I think you'll find that we're in line. But she knows all the answers. And she'll supply them for you.
I have talked to her, you know, but she hasn't given me a clear answer on this particular. I mean, like I say, the last thing I want to do is not get this help building these roads. I do not want to stop this, but I just want to clarify some of the statements in here. They're saying half. I didn't see it.
Well, you know, it doesn't mention the length of time where water stood in the ditches, and if the ditches were shallow, that they moved up on the asphalt. I don't know what constitutes water on the roads, you know, ponding. I don't know.
You're right. I don't think there's any drain in this county that would handle the amount of water we got the time we got. But it did handle it. I mean, the water was gone fairly quickly if there was that much up there.
If you'll get back with me after the meeting, I'll provide you with contact information from Ms. Langford, and she can give you all the details. Would anyone like to make a public announcement?
I think we finished number 8. I'd like to make a motion that you pay that money back that you paid a personal lawyer for personal information.
It's not personal information.
It was.
Look, I read the opinion. You're out of order, sir. You are out of order right now.
You started what?
You're out of order. We closed that agenda item.
We did not.
Yes, I did. Trust me. I closed it.
Didn't.
Okay.
This is a court, 5, not
Okay.
1.
I asked if he was done. It was his agenda item. Okay? Okay. So if you want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Good.
And it pays back that $1,700 and whatever back to the taxpayer for a personal lawyer.
I need a second on that.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay. Duly noted.
And I would like a email deposit slip from the treasurer showing it went into the bank.
I'm not paying it back.
We just told you to.
I don't care what you told me. Law supersedes county courts. Doesn't matter what you say, sir. You can't make up the law as you go.
What this was about, you having a gun out on your desk all the time, unholstered.
In a private office.
Lawyer.
If you want to talk about the merits of this case, you should put it on the next agenda, sir.
That all has to do with it.
Did you hear what I said? Okay. Anything else? Public announcements. Yes, sir.
While back in court, there was a guy and said, Precinct 3 needs to be investigated like everybody else. Just for the record, every precinct was investigated during that, court deal. I was investigated just like everybody else. So, just for the record, I was involved in this investigation that they were involved in. That's the public record I want on there. I was investigated.
If there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn, please. Myra?
I want to comment. I don't understand why there's only one commissioner that has sense enough to realize, Commissioner Precinct 3, that this money needs to come back to the county. I don't understand you. Why can't you understand what's been stated? And I also, I'm sorry, number 2, for the emergency money for precinct, two. It is not an emergency. Please read the definition of an emergency. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other announcements, please? Need a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.